NHL at the Rink is presented by Skip, the official food delivery app of the NHL.
Welcome into another episode of the NHL at the Rink podcast. It's brought to you by Skip. Skip to the good part and get groceries, meals, and essentials delivered right to your door on Skip. Sean, we're past the Four Nations. We've got a Stadium Series game to look forward to. But my goodness, Alex Ovechkin keeps scoring. The great chase, Sean. It is on. As we speak, he's 12 away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record.
It's incredible. I mean, what he's doing, and we talk about it all the time, and every time we say it's more incredible, and each time it becomes more incredible. He's 12 away with 20-plus games left in the season. It's certainly feasible that he could do it this year when not too long ago it wasn't feasible that he could do it at all. And then he broke his leg, and we put it off till next year, and now you have to seriously think about him getting it done before we get to the playoffs this year.
24 games left. I'm going to make a prediction here, Sean. He does it in game 23 of the 24 left. He does it at UBS Arena against the New York Islanders on April 15th. That's 12 goals in 23 games, which is very doable. So clip it, take the audio. That's my prediction. Alex Ovechkin gets it done in the second to last game of the Capitals' regular season.
Well, I'm going to stay consistent, and I hate to be the party pooper here, but I don't think he's getting it done until next year. You're talking about a goal every second game, right? Which is very hard to do. That's a 41 goal pace for a season, right? At some point, there's going to be a slump. And let's not forget, as this gets bigger, once you get under 10 and then you get under 5, the scrutiny and the pressure is going to become suffocating.
First off, he's got 30 goals this season in 42 games, okay? So he's well above that pace, a goal every 2 games. But it's a good point you make. Is there pressure, though, for him to do? He's going to do it. It's whether he does it this season or at the beginning of next season. I don't know that there's pressure associated with this. I don't think this is squeeze the stick time. I don't think this Capitals team is like, we have to make sure he gets the puck at all times. I mean, if you're not looking for Alex Ovechkin when you're on the ice with him to begin with, you're doing it wrong, right? So I don't know. I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't know that the pressure goes up. What would go up is the following of it and the people that are following him around, Wayne Gretzky being one of them, Gary Bettman being another. That might change things. If you're talking pressure in that sense, I guess I can understand it. But this is a guy he's handled pressure really, really well in his entire career. So I'm honestly worried about that.
Of course I'm talking the scrutiny. I'm not talking the pressure on him to score. He does it in his sleep. This is going to be a traveling circus. And it affects people. It affected everybody that's chased anything. Think about Hank Aaron. Think about any player that's chased any record. It affects them. It's outside of their normal experience, right? Alex Ovechkin goes to the rink every day. He deals with the media when he has to. He does his stuff, and that's it. He's done. And now it's going to be every day, unrelenting. And not only for him, because he's not going to be available every day, but for everybody else on that team. It is going to be different, and it's going to be in the middle of a playoff run. Certainly the Capitals are going to make the playoffs. They're still fighting for various things, whether it's first overall, first in the East, favorable playoff matchups, whatever it is. The pressure that comes late in the season in the final 15 games is going to be intensified because the scrutiny is going to be unrelenting.
That I'll agree with you on. I also will say this, that he has 7 empty net goals this season. The Capitals are a very good team. They typically are winning games late in the third period. He's going to get more opportunities to get more empty net goals. However, Spencer Carberry went on radio, I think in D.C., and was saying that he doesn't want the record breaker to be an empty net goal. He probably doesn't want the record tire to be an empty net goal either. He's 11 away from tying, 12 away from breaking it. So that is something to watch as well here, because they may keep him off the ice in 5-on-6 situations if he's at 892 or 893, right? If he's there, they may keep him off the ice. So to not have the record breaker or record tie or be an empty net goal, which, Sean, would then potentially go to your argument that it doesn't get done this year because he is being helped, at least along the way this season, by the empty net goals.
Is there somewhere in the rule book or the statistics book that empty net goals don't count the same as other goals?
Absolutely not, but this is apparently what Alex Ovechkin wants or Carberry wants. I can understand why you'd want to score it against a goalie. Not,
What?
I get it.
Well, I don't. They all count the same. Look, Alex Ovechkin is out there because he's trustworthy. It's not a gift to him. If he was a danger at 5-on-6, he wouldn't be out there. What'd you say? He has 7 goals?
7 empty net.
Empty net goals. You know how many goals they have, the other team, when he's out there 5-on-6?
Not very many.
0.
Not 7. 0.
0. And the last one he scored against the Penguins, hang that in the Louvre.
Listen,
That was a beautiful goal. I'll take that goal on my NHL resume any day of the week. I would take it as the record breaker.
but you just said that this is different as you go forward with it, right? That
The scrutiny is different.
Yeah, but it's all different, Sean. It's all different.
If somebody's going to hold the fact that Alex Ovechkin scores an empty net goal against as the record, or if somebody's going to say, well, he has so many empty net goals, first of all, he doesn't have as many as Gretzky.
No, they're about even, or I don't have the number in front of me, but it's close. It's very close.
So if somebody says that, I don't know where that would come from. They all count the same. I'm trying to not insult anybody that holds that opinion, but it's hard for me because the idea is to score goals. He's the greatest goal scorer in the history of the world, and extra man or underman empty net situations are part of the game. Should we take away everybody's empty net goals?
No, but what if Alex Ovechkin himself is saying, I want that goal to be against the goalie. I want to score it in the flow of play, not an empty netter.
Then I rest my case because now the scrutiny has become so much that he's altered the way he plays the game.
Fair. Listen, I like you have the dissenting opinion sometimes. My opinion is different than yours. It's good. It's good. It makes it fun, but I can understand where he's going with that. I get it. I understand what he wants, if that's what he wants. Now, that's what Spencer Carberry said. I don't know what Alex Ovechkin wants or doesn't want. I think he wants the record, and then he wants to go win the Stanley Cup. I think if in an ideal world, Alex Ovechkin scores 12 more goals this season, helps the Capitals win in every game that he scores, and he goes and wins the Stanley Cup again. That's what he wants, and we'll see if he gets there. The Great Chase, though, is definitely on. By the way, Stadium Series, we're going to get to that in a few minutes here. Coming up this weekend at Ohio Stadium, Ohio State University, the Horseshoe. We're going to have Sean Corrali from the Columbus Blue Jackets. He will be joining us shortly. So the Great Chase is going on, Sean. The Four Nations face-off is behind us, but it's still, there's still a lot of talk about this tournament and how good it was. You tell me. I was asked by somebody I know. Well, I was told by somebody I know that the Four Nations face-off blew his expectations away by 1,000%. It blew my expectations away by about 10%. Because we're in the game and we know what's going on and we know how important this is and we knew how important it would be to the players. What blew my expectations away was just how tight checking it was, how intense it was, and the intensity in the buildings. And there was you've covered gold medal games, you covered 2002, involving US Canada, you covered 2010 with me involving US Canada. Sean, maybe it's a recency bias, but I don't know if the intensity in the building was at what it was for the Four Nations. In Vancouver, it was really probably equal, I would say. I think it was probably equal, but obviously you had a little bit more politically charged stuff going on, this go round. But what did you think? I mean, did it blow your expectations away, or was the hockey what you sort of expected and then just everything else just rose above?
It was 92 of the 110 best players in the world in that tournament. And I'm just picking 110 because I'm thinking about the players that couldn't go, like Kopitar and Draisaitl and so on and so forth. So somewhere around there, it was 95% of the best players in the world in one setting. So it didn't blow me away. And it was playoff hockey, right? And it was everybody buying into playoff hockey. The stick checking and the gap control and all these little technical things that we geek out on were there. And then there were these broad strokes that people that don't know what a gap is, that don't know what offsides is, were all of a sudden welcomed under the tent because they understand emotion and they understand pride and they understand the spectacle that was put in front of them. And it would be impossible, I think, as a fan of any sport, of any drama, to not look at those games and say, there's something here for me. I might not understand the intricacies of how they're back checking or what's happening on a face-off or whatever else is going on, but I understand the emotion and the pride that was present throughout that tournament. And it wasn't just the first game in Montreal. That certainly ratcheted it up, and that's why the number was so huge for the final, which both of those games are in my top 5 of all time.
Yeah.
That I've ever seen. Just for quality of play, quality of the experience, the crowd, the whole thing, the stakes, everything was there just to make compelling TV. But it didn't really blow me away because that's what I expected.
Exactly my point. Yeah, that was exactly my point. But I'll tell you what, we talk about the impact this had, and now the impact of international hockey going forward will have. 2 stories. One, guy just that I know around town, saw him, came up to me, was raving about it, said he's going to watch hockey now. That's number one. That's what we're looking for, right? And he's in our bracket, our age range bracket. My son, who already watches hockey, one of his closest friends, one of his best friends, just turned 16 years old, went to a Rangers game a couple of weeks before the Four Nations face-off, then watched it, and watched especially that U.S.-Canada game Thursday night at TD Garden, and now he's like all in, like talking hockey, wearing, and then, like he was watching Rangers Penguins on Sunday. Like now he's watching. He loves it. There's 2 examples right there, a teenager and a guy who's close to 50, and they're both weren't really watching it, and now they are. Like to me, it worked. It's what it's sport. That's what it's about, right?
And that's where it exceeded expectations, I think. More people came into the tent.
Yeah.
Than I think anybody expected. I mean, just the stories that you hear, like you just said, my son's away at college. He said the same thing, that some of his roommates who never watched hockey sat down and watched the games with him, and we're asking him questions, and we're like, hey, when's the next game on? And they'll be back for the playoffs, and that's how you grow the game. But again, it's a really simple thing, right? There were heroes and there were villains. And it doesn't matter the sport. Like, you could watch anything. You could watch rugby and not understand a thing. But if some guy's walking around that field acting like a big jerk, you're either going to be like, I like that guy, or, well, I hope that guy gets what's coming to him.
The first thing I ever covered, by the way, when I was in college for the student newspaper at the University of Arizona, was college club rugby, University of Arizona College Club Rugby. And I covered the entire season without knowing a thing about the sport. So I just told stories about guys. Still couldn't tell you anything about the sport other than it's brutal.
You're a professional, Dan.
I was not at the time. So listen, it was fantastic. It was great hockey. And now let's look ahead. Next year, 1 year from now, we're going to be talking about the Olympics and what happened in Milan. And I want to look at this from a U.S. perspective, Sean. That tournament, if we didn't know it already, clinched the fact that the U.S. is not just neck and neck with Canada. Even though they lost in overtime on McDavid's goal in the final, I'd argue with you that the U.S. is ahead, slightly ahead of Canada, because let's think about what happened in that particular game. Makar came back into the lineup for Canada. The U.S. did not have Quinn Hughes. It did not have Charlie McAvoy. It barely had Matthew Tkachuk, who couldn't finish the game, and Brady Tkachuk is injured. Banged up U.S., healthy-ish Canada. Remember, Shea Theodore wasn't there. And it's an overtime game where one assignment in front of the net gets missed by the absolute wrong guy, and he deposits it into the net. Sean, they didn't win it, but that was proof for the U.S. in my opinion, and they should be. They're right there, if not ahead of Canada. And let's see who's healthy and who's not going into the Olympics next year and where we're at. And there's some roster stuff that the U.S. certainly has to look at, the bottom six, usage of Kyle Connor, things along those lines. But I'd almost argue that the U.S. should still be favorites going into the Olympics.
Look, man, nobody waves the flag harder than me. I love the U.S. team. I think they're awesome. You can't make this argument.
It's an overtime game.
Do you know how many times have the Americans...
The U.S. dominated that overtime until Connor McDavid was left open.
How many times have the Americans beat the Canadians in best on best?
They beat them in 96 World Cup. You mean to win a best on best.
So you can't make that argument. Look, the Americans had a huge advantage in goal until the very last minute, and Binnington stood on his head in overtime and got them to a point where the best player in the world could win it. But if you think the Americans are ahead of the Canadians, they're just going to stick all their medals right in your face. But they did what they needed to. They did what they needed to do.
They did.
They needed to survive. They needed to survive, and then they needed to score, and they did it. And the Americans didn't, and they have it. And until they do, they're not ahead of Canada. They're much closer, and they are a powerhouse. And I think you saw it with the contributions of the National Developmental Program. The tightness that team has with all the players that have gone through that program makes this American team feel different. But until they beat Canada with something on the line, they're not better.
All right. You're right. Can't argue with that. I just look at who was there, who wasn't healthy, and what it looks like going forward.
There were a lot of guys that weren't healthy.
Yeah, I understand. I just listen. It was an overtime, really close, and I would say that the U.S. had the better of play in that entire game and was missing their best defenseman in Quinn Hughes and one of the other best defensemen in McAvoy. And there's some roster stuff that they're going to absolutely have to look at. But Jacob Slavin showed how good he is in that tournament. Brock Faber showed how good he is in that tournament. So good stuff there for USA Hockey going forward. Obvious good stuff there for Hockey Canada as well. And we've got a Stadium Series now to look ahead to, Sean. And we're going to have Sean Corrali on here in a second. And who knew, right? So now we're past the Four Nations, the great chases of Alex Ovechkin's goal chase to Wayne Gretzky. That's going on. And here we are. The Detroit Red Wings and Columbus Blue Jackets are playing an essential home and home. They're going to play Thursday night in Detroit and then Saturday night at Ohio State, which will be a home game for the Blue Jackets. And they're neck and neck, and they are the first and second wild cards right now as we speak in the Eastern Conference. When this schedule came out, you'd look at it and be like, all right, that's not going to be a game that really matters for the standings. Oh, boy, does it matter.
The Detroit Red Wings are the third best team in hockey since January 1st.
Yeah.
That's bananas. And Columbus isn't that far behind them. So this game is going to be great. I think it's going to have everything you want. It's going to be more than 90,000 people. It looks like we missed the worst of the weather. It was 18 degrees last week when we were at Four Nations and getting updates. It's like here in the East Coast, it's climbing up a little bit. It looks like it's going to be a little more tolerable, but certainly fine winter weather to play in. I think it's going to be a spectacle, and I think it's going to be a celebration of hockey in Ohio, right? Like the game has grown so much there in Columbus. Columbus has been a model franchise in every way except for playoff success. They haven't had the playoff success they want, but in every other metric, they've been a model franchise, and they've grown the game to such a degree that this is their opportunity to show the world who they are.
And beyond that, this particular team this season it's a likable team too, right? I mean, it's a team that we don't root here. But it's a team that you can't help but get behind. And it's not just because everything that they've gone through, and obviously going back to the tragedy with Johnny Gaudreau, their teammate. It's how they've handled this whole season. It's the attitude that they play with, the attitude that Dean Evison has instilled in the group, the way that they play. they're a very likable team. And so let's bring on one of the guys that's a part of that team, and he knows Ohio State well. He's from Columbus. He grew up in the Blue Jackets system. The Blue Jackets minor hockey system, that is. Sean Kuraly from the Blue Jackets joined us. Looking ahead to the Stadium Series game, here's that interview with Sean Kuraly, and it is brought to you by Skip. Skip to the good part and get groceries, meals, and essentials delivered right to your door on Skip. Sean, thanks so much for jumping on with us. This is special what we got coming up here. Stadium Series at Ohio State. As a guy from Ohio, grew up in the Blue Jackets system. You played minor hockey there. You're from there. Is this a dream come true?
I think it really kind of like sank in a little bit when I walked out there the other day and the rink was there and at Ohio Stadium. And I'm usually showing up there on a Saturday afternoon or evening to watch the Buckeyes. It looks a lot different, but there's always a bit of a special energy, I think, when you walk into that, that stadium. And I've watched some cool football games there, and there's been some pretty awesome moments. And obviously grew up a big Buckeye fan. But now to be playing hockey there seemed pretty surreal, and it kind of brought back some memories from playing at Notre Dame at the Winter Classic against Chicago, and how cool that was. And a hockey game, doesn't usually allow you to bring together about almost 100,000 people. So I'll never forget some of the memories from Notre Dame. Just looking up and you feel like you score a touchdown if you're lucky enough to score.
How many times do you think you've been in that building?
Someone asked me this the other day, and I gave a really broad answer because I'm like, I can't. There was a lot of years that I could not go to football games because I was playing. I mean, the fall, I'm always playing hockey. So not 50 times. I've not been to 50 football games, but more than a couple handful.
It just clicked with me. You played an outdoor game at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to play one at Ohio State. I mean, these are two of the biggest football programs in the nation. Obviously, just played for the national championship. That's really awesome. I mean, have you thought about it in that way?
For a kid from the Midwest, if you told me I was going to play in two sellout stadiums, one at Ohio Stadium and one at Notre Dame, I'd have thought I was catching a football. But I'm definitely happy to be doing it, playing hockey. Definitely, I think I'll throw the pigskin around with a couple of the guys. We usually do that before the game anyway. But pretend I'm wearing scarlet and gray for a little bit down there. But no, it's really cool. And I just how many times people have brought up to me the last Winter Classic, and we ended up winning in Boston. I scored a goal there, and how many times in replays and times I've seen that goal over and over again. You realize that these games carry a bit of a greater significance than just a regular season game, and this is a really important regular season game for us to boot. But the 2 points is crucial. But these games, I remember watching as a kid too. It was always more on the Winter Classic, New Year's Day game, and you'd watch the game, and then you'd go outside and play in the street, or if the pond was frozen or a rink was in the backyard, you'd go out there and pretend you were those guys. So these were always the ones that seemed to be the most fun to watch as a kid, and it was always something fun to tune into, and you're always hoping for a little snow and some good weather and a good game. But these kind of games are games that sometimes end up being like really significant moments in fans' living rooms, or if fans are lucky enough to come to fans' memories of teams and players and passionate fan bases for their cities.
Were you much of a football player? Sure.
I played like one spring. But no, I love it. Like we used to, before the Blue Jackets games, we'd play like 2-on-2, offense, defense to get warmed up. But I never really got into the organized stuff. It just overlapped too much with hockey. And but I always was a big football fan. All my buddies growing up in Columbus it's a football city, and they were all big into high school and middle school on the football team and stuff. So I was always around it.
Why is this game so big for Columbus? Like, in your opinion, you have a unique opinion to this. Why is it so big for Columbus?
Well, Columbus has always seemed like felt, from our perspective, felt like the last one to feel like we've gotten one of these outdoor games, and I know the media long before I got to Columbus has been, um, somewhat imploring the league to bring one to the city, and to finally kind of get that. And I think the city of Columbus is just really anxious to show off kind of what they've got going on and what's been built there in Columbus. There's been some tough seasons, and the fans continually show up, and we have what we think is one of the best fan bases in the league and one of the most passionate fan bases in the league. And they've been through it, with the team, and definitely some adversity, especially this season, and in seasons past, with a lot of seasons that ended near the bottom of the standings. And I think this fan base is eager to show off kind of how passionate they are, and put themselves more on a national stage, and just be proud of kind of what hockey has come to be in Columbus, Ohio.
How special is it for you that you guys have put yourselves in a position to make this a meaningful game? Because early on in the season for both teams, it was like, well, I don't know, a March game between these two teams, maybe it's not going to mean that much, and now it's humongous.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you could have drawn it up much better, and you just never know where it's going to end up at the beginning of the year, where this game's going to be. You're kind of banking on two different teams of, there's definitely some risk. There's some risk involved, I'm sure, with it, of where are these teams going to be, and all that. But look where it ends up. It ends up with two teams battling for playoff spots, and seems like we're going to be right down to the bitter end. What more could you ask for? It just kind of, the story wrote itself on this one, and we're just lucky to be a part of it. And I know you're gonna see two teams that are first of all dying for 2 points, and definitely our fan base, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of Detroit fans there cheering on their teams, and rightfully so, and we can't wait for that.
How is it that you guys have put yourself in this position? What is it about your team right now that you went from the team that experienced the tragedy, the hockey world experienced tragedy, to zero expectations, barely touching the salary cap floor, and now here you are, you're standing today in the second wild card position in the Eastern Conference, and you're right there. How did you get here?
Man, it seems like we had so much adversity that it was almost like there was too much to even think about one of the things. I mean, we've number one, we've had John with us the whole way, and we've got our moms on this trip right now. We're actually in Detroit right now, and our moms are here. And we had a meeting this morning just talking about how we've carried John with us to this point, and we're going to continue to do so, and how he'd want us to be in certain moments and stuff. So first of all, that's been a huge part of it, having him with us, and thinking about him every step of the way. And we've had a ton of injuries, and man, we just, how have we done it? I mean, it's just, we kind of just showed up every day and put our best foot forward. And I think we kept it pretty simple. And there wasn't much room for, anything else. It was just, we're going to put our best foot forward today, and again tomorrow. And I think you've found a group that we've kind of, the whole mantra surrounding the team has been, we've been trying to have fun and enjoy it. And like, another thing we learned from John is, he came to the rink to enjoy this and have fun and compete and work his butt off. And we've kind of been doing that from the start. So it's kind of been, a focus on fun and enjoying it, and realizing that we're pretty darn lucky to be doing what we're doing. And, we're playing, like we got nothing to lose, and we expect to continue to do so.
When you take the ice on Saturday, and it's going to be such a celebration of Columbus hockey, you talked about the fans and how excited they are to show off what Columbus is. Dan mentioned at the start of this interview, you grew up in that system that was founded basically with the Blue Jackets, and they wanted to build throughout all of Columbus and throughout all of Ohio, this foundation that would feed players into the NHL. How much are you going to think about that process and about guys like Coach Ed Ginger? Am I saying that right?
Ginger, yep,
Ginger, yeah. And, somebody that's been there for 25 years. I talked to him a few years ago when you guys made the playoffs for the first time. Just all of those influential people in your life that kind of led to this point.
Oh man, there's so many different parts and pieces of this that have been a culmination of kind of what's brought Columbus hockey to what it is today. And who knows where myself or some of the other Columbus guys end up without the backing of the Blue Jackets coming to town and announced in 99 and started playing in 2000. So 25 years ago. It's just continually built slowly, but surely built a pretty solid foundation of youth hockey in the city, a community of, even my brothers are playing adult league hockey. It's just it's grown into somewhat of a, there's definitely an undertone of a lot of hockey and what is a football town. So, I think that quiet. It seems like it's a quiet group of the hockey community that's ready to show themselves off, and like I said, with all other people, the Ed Gingers and obviously the McConnells bringing the team here a long time ago and continuing through this day, and I mean countless. I don't know if you'd be able to name them all, but just so many different people that have kind of brought Columbus and hockey along the way they have, and we've been lucky to have so many people that have done such good, honest, hard, work to make that happen. And as a result, we're kind of where we're at today. And who knows if some of us Columbus kids, don't have that opportunity or the interest, or weren't able to, like myself, watch the Rick Nashes, the Derek Dorsett's, the Jared Bowles, the Jody Shelley, some of these guys that are still around, watch them up close and be inspired by them, and trying to do a little bit of the same ourselves.
Well, that's what this could be, right? I mean, you're going to get fans in there. There's going to be a lot of kids in there who are going to be like, this will be a lifetime memory for them, and they may want to be the next Sean Corrali. They probably already do want to be the next one. So I mean, just from that perspective too, you were once that kid. Now there's going to be kids that are at this game, a celebration of hockey in their city, in their market, and they get to show it off too. I mean, how cool is that?
And I've said this many times before, and I'm certain that the best is yet to come from these young kids in Columbus, and they're going to be much better players. I think that's kind of the way you draw it up, is they're going to just keep getting better, and for them to. I think for them to see me, a kid that grew up in Columbus, came up through the system from day one to basically when I was 17 years old. I learned hockey in Columbus, Ohio, and was able to make it to this level. So, just to be able to give the kids that are watching the reassurance that, first of all, they can do it. And second of all, they have all the resources they need to do it in Columbus. And, they like I said, I see these kids at these youth practices, and they're so much better than we used to be at that age. That good thing. Yeah, I'm not competing against them. I won't be competing against them because, man, I think there's going to be some special players that eventually come out of Columbus, and that's the thing what you want as someone that's come before some of them, and if I can inspire a little bit of the next generation, what a cool thing to be a part of.
One fun one before we let you go. So you talked about playing in Notre Dame, and you guys might have had the coolest outfits that have ever been a part of an outdoor game, right? The Peaky Blinder outfits.
I think, did we start that? I feel like I said we started that.
Yes, wow. And it still might be the best one. Have you paid attention since, and do you feel any pressure this weekend?
I have paid attention. Maybe I'm biased. I still feel like that might be the top one. Maybe like I said, maybe a little bias. I'm sure there's been some other good ones in the past. I paid attention, but I think we've got yeah, I think that was a good one, and I've paid attention in the past, and hopefully we could do something pretty good here this week or this weekend too.
So
Are you
that's the
confident?
tease.
I feel good about it. Yeah.
Okay. There's the tease.
Feel
There's
good
the
about it.
tease right there on what it could be. Always something to look out for. Sean, really appreciate it. Enjoy the mom's trip. Good luck against the Red Wings, and we'll see you this weekend.
Awesome. All right, fellas. Thanks a lot.
Great stuff there with Sean Kuraly. And again, that interview is brought to you by Skip. Skip to the good part and get groceries, meals, and essentials delivered right to your door on Skip. So, Sean, we got the Stadium Series, which we obviously have talked about, coming up. We're both going to Columbus tomorrow. That would be Thursday. A week from Friday is the trade deadline. Like, it's like bang, 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 bang. Things are just happening, right? I mean, you go Winter Classic, you go Four Nations, you go Stadium Series, you go trade deadline, and before you know, we're going to be at the playoffs, okay? And in between all of that is Alex Ovechkin, the great chase for Alex Ovechkin chasing Wayne Gretzky's record. But trade deadline. Let's stick with the two teams we're going to be seeing this weekend. The Columbus Blue Jackets and the Detroit Red Wings. Ask me. I understand the situation with the Blue Jackets. You know, they're in a spot right now. Can they stay in that spot? I don't always say you got to reward a team for what it's done, but I really think that the Blue Jackets need to make a move here to help them get better, be a better team. Because if you can, capitalize on this likable group, capitalize on what it could be, and then you never know. You never know once you get into the playoffs. So from Columbus's perspective, Sean, I'm looking at this team and saying, all right, they could use some help up front. They could probably use some help on the back end. Anywhere they can just get better, right? They have Ivan Provorov, who's a pending UFA. Keep him as your own rental. Go. Try to make the playoffs and capitalize on this season, which is unexpected right now.
So why change? Right?
Because
you
if
said
you can get better. That's what they can get a little bit better.
But you said the biggest thing about this team is its likability.
Well, you got to be careful with what you bring in, for sure, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if I change. Again, they've been so good since January 1st. They're one of the top teams, so they'll be the second wild card, but they're not playing like a second wild card or the first wild card. They're not playing that way. They're playing above what their record suggests because they did not have a good start to the season. And they're playing for each other, right? Like I look at Marchenko and dude's playing with a broken face. He came back early. And he's got four goals. He's got goals in both games since the Four Nations break ended, right? He's out there laying it on the line for himself, for his teammates, for Coach Dean Everson, for everybody. Like they've fostered that chemistry, and I would be really careful in messing with it because I don't know that you can make an addition that makes them jump from second wild card to favorite in the tournament. If they're going to win it, they're going to be an underdog. They're going to be an 8 or a 7 coming through and just peaking at the right time and gelling at the right time. I don't know if there's a player out there available that changes the way you look at the Columbus Blue Jacket and says, oh, well, now they're a threat in the East.
No, but what a player, an addition could do, and a smart addition could do, is hold off some of the other teams and get them in, right? Hold off the Rangers, the Bruins are banged up right now, but you're trying to hold off some of these teams and get yourself in too, and that would help them get in. It doesn't guarantee them anything, but it would help them get in, and then once they're in, if it does work, it helps you with your theory, with the thought of maybe we can go pull an upset in the first round. But I think at least what you're saying is don't change, right? Don't sell. Provorov's a tough call. I understand that. If you can go out and get a high draft pick for Provorov, you're enticed to want to go do that. I get it, especially if you don't think you're going to be able to sign him. But you're right there. Don't sell. If you're not going to buy, don't sell. Stay the course is what you're saying at least, right?
Yeah, and what are you going to get for Provorov?
I don't know what the market would dictate, to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know what the market could dictate for him right now, because I don't know, who are the sellers and what do they have? Because you got to look at other potential, options that would be available.
Do you think he's getting a first round?
I think he could. He's a top pair defenseman, really. At least a top 4 defenseman. I think he could get you a first round pick. I do.
From a bottom half team.
Correct. That's why I don't sell. Because you're not helping your team. You're not pushing it forward, and you're changing it, and it's making it harder. And this is a likable team that warrants a push, I think. Now, from Detroit's perspective, it's the same. They have played, you touched on it, they're, third in the National Hockey League since January 1st. Todd McClellan has come in. They got the initial bump. They sagged a little. They've continued to go forward now. They've bumped up again. It's not necessarily a new coach bump anymore. They're playing much better, and they have consistently been playing much better. And now they have Andrew Kopp, who's out. He's their second-line center. He was playing with DeBrincat and Kane, and now he's out. He had pectoral muscle surgery. He's out for the rest of the season. JT Compher's filling that spot right now, but Sean, I think if you're the Red Wings, you're Steve Yzerman, you got to go make an addition here that will, A, fill that spot from Andrew Kopp, but B, solidify you as a playoff team. It's been 9 years that the Red Wings have not been in the playoffs. It's about time they get in. They have never hosted a playoff game at Little Caesars Arena.
Buy, and then buy again.
Yep.
They're 14-4-2 since January 1st. 750 winning percentage.
Buy.
Like, they're a good team, and they need this. They can't miss again and say, oh, well, next year. It's been next year for a decade. There's players that have gone through that system from 18-year-old kids to 28 years old. Dylan Larkin is a perfect example. Saying next year's our year. This year. This is their year. I don't know how deep they go, but this is the year you need playoff hockey in Detroit. You owe it to the players that put you in this position, and you owe it to your fan base. That's a proud fan base. They expect the playoffs. This has not been kind to them.
No, it hasn't. They expect it. They got it for a quarter century straight, and they haven't had it now for almost a decade. 100%. You buy, you do what you can. And the other thing about this too is this is not necessarily a young and up and coming team either, right? Nope. I mean, they've got some young players, but this is not a young and up and coming team. They've kind of built this a little bit through the draft, but a lot through free agency and whatnot. And you got to go. You got to get in. And this year in particular, and this is with all due respect to the Washington Capitals, Sean, like this year in particular, it's a why not us year in the Eastern Conference.
And you look at their younger players, right? Like Lucas Raymond played in the Four Nations, and I thought his game jumped.
He was good.
Like he reveled in that. He reveled in that level of competition. He reveled in that level of talent surrounding him. He embraced it. Those young guys, like you're right, there's a lot of free agents. There's guys like Patrick Kane who have won cups and experienced all kinds of stuff. But their young core, their core that's going to carry them for the next 5 years, has never experienced this. And they need it because they're going to be better next year. And you would like to think that they're going to be better for several years. So get the playoff experience now. Even if it's one round, it's huge for players.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Different scenario.
Yes.
Let's move on from that. Different scenario are the Chicago Blackhawks. And their young guys have never experienced this either. And it's just constant losing. And it's bad hockey. And now Seth Jones, a $9.5 million a year defenseman who's got 4 years left on it, he not only has said he's be willing to waive his no trade clause because what is he 30 years old and he's just like the timelines don't add up here for what the Blackhawks are doing and my timeline. They didn't add up when he signed with them either. So that's I don't That's another story. But then again, I don't know a lot of teams were giving Seth Jones $9.5 million a year at that time either. So regardless of that, here's the situation we're in now. He wants to waive his no movement clause to go to a contender, get traded. It's a hard trade to make, but then they played a game against Utah, Sean. And we'll cut to the audio here in a second, but like, my goodness. You watch this Blackhawks, and it's just, we saw it in the Winter Classic on the national stage, right? It was bad. It was ugly. And now the body language is not good. And now your top defenseman wants out. This is a tough spot for the Blackhawks.
It is. And I don't know where he's going to go. You're right. It didn't line up when they did it, right? And
made no sense.
But the money was there, right? And everybody always talks about when players are signing, oh, they should take all the money they can. You know, sure, financial security is huge. But then you learn. Do you think he'd miss those $2 million?
Oh, I don't know.
If he's playing for another team?
Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you what, if he gets his wish and gets traded to a contender, he's still going to make all his money. So it's 3.5.
Who can take him?
They're going to have to eat some salary.
You can't name, and they don't want to eat any more salary.
Well, they're going to have to.
No, they don't.
If they're going to trade him,
Why would they trade him?
Well, there is no way a team is taking Seth Jones at $9.5 billion. This is not happening.
But that's my point.
Seth Jones was very critical of the Blackhawks game, very candid in his comments after a 2-1 loss to Utah.
We're the exact same team right now as we were at game one. And I think it's pretty evident out there. We haven't made any strides to be a better, more simple hockey team, And it shows, we don't get a lot of wins because of that.
This is kind of an opportunity to gauge that since you started here and now 60 games and almost you're back here again.
Well, this is in almost 4 years of, bottom of the league, so it's not just this year, for me at least.
You hear the frustration in his voice, what he said. If you watch the video, if you get a chance to watch the video, you see the facial expression too, the body language. So, listen, I understand he wants out. It's going to be a very difficult trade to make. But if you're the Blackhawks, you could look at it and say, his timeline doesn't work with ours either. So let's eat some salary. Let's trade him. And then this offseason, we can look to improve our roster and spend money and get well above the floor that way.
I don't buy it. I don't see any place for him to go. And how attractive is he? Like, A, he's not playing great. And B, you talked about the body language and the facial expressions. Look, the first thing, I don't care what level you're playing at, whether you're a peewee, whether you're a bantam, whether you're in college, wherever you are, the first thing a scout walks in the rink and looks at, it's not how good you skate. It's not how hard you shoot the puck. It's how you behave, how you deal with your teammates, how you treat the staff. All of those things go into being a good player. And we just talked about the Columbus Blackhawks. Say they needed a defenseman. The Columbus Blue Jackets. Say they needed a defenseman. Are you bringing that guy in?
Oh, I would think about it because he's going to come in ready to roar, ready to go. He's going to come in and be like, I am out of there. I am ready to rock. Let's go. I wanted this. I wanted to get traded to a team that can contend. I am all in. Let's go. And he's not a rental.
You know who else said that? Elias Pettersson.
Well, Elias Pettersson didn't get traded. Good.
No, but he wanted a trade. He wanted somebody to be traded, and they were traded. Where's the roar?
He doesn't have it.
Where's the roar? Where's the bump? Where's all that you're talking about when somebody gets relieved of a situation they're in, and all of a sudden they're going to fly? It doesn't always correlate.
No, but if you look at the opposite of that, JT Miller has done really well with the New York Rangers.
But he wasn't the one begging for a change.
No, I don't think he was upset with it.
No, but he wasn't the one. Pettersson was like, things need to change and then I'll be better. And so did all his supporters. Oh, when we get out of this situation, you're going to see the brilliance, the 100-point player. Where is he? They're dead without him.
He's got 3 points in 7 games since JT Miller was traded. And he was barely a player for Sweden. He was barely a player for Sweden in the Four Nations face-off. So you're right, and they need Quinn Hughes back. It looks like they're going to get him back. They're in the race. They need Elias Pettersson has to step his game up. But if you look at it, the guy who got traded, Sean, is JT Miller, and he's the one who got out of that situation and has done really well with the New York Rangers. Seth Jones is in a situation where he wants out, and maybe he'll do well when he gets out of it. Mikko Rantanen never asked to get traded out of Colorado. He did get traded. He has not thrived in Carolina. What do you do if you're the Carolina Hurricanes with Mikko Rantanen?
You hold on to him. It's 7 games. This is lunacy. We're going to trade him again.
What if he can't sign it? What if he won't sign with you, though? What if he won't sign with you?
Then you try and win the cup.
Okay, fair. I'm in for that. Absolutely. Right. I think it needs time. I agree with you, man. I think it needs time. Rantanen in Carolina. You're coming into a totally different system. Bednar had those guys. Jared Bednar in Colorado allows those guys to just go. They play a ton. He rolls them all the time. He allows them to go. And you can't argue with the success. It works. Right now, the Avalanche are struggling a little bit. They need some secondary scoring help. They need help in that sense. But that's not the point. The big picture here is Bednar coaches way different than Rod Brind'Amour does. Way different than Brind'Amour does. And it takes time. It doesn't mean you can't thrive in the system. There's guys who have thrived in the system and have been able to score. It just takes time to get it. Jake Gensel didn't get it right away last year when he went to Carolina, and then eventually he was pretty good for them in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a proven player. He's going to be good. And you know what? If he walks, you know what you have?
A lot of money.
Cap space, baby. Free agency. Like, I'm sorry, I don't think they gave up a lot. They swung for the fences. They're another team that needs to have success. Like, they've had playoff success. They need to get over the hump. And if I'm a GM, that's the guy that's going to get me over the hump. And I swung for the fences, and I did my best, and we'll regroup. And that seems to be Tulsky's modus operandi. Do you remember the start of the season? When everybody's like, what's going to happen with the Carolina Hurricanes? They lost to everybody.
Yeah.
Their team was a shell of itself. Where are they now?
Right there. Locked in pretty much to a playoff series against the New Jersey Devils at that point. So the trade deadline, Sean, it's coming. It's March 7th. It's Friday. So we're getting close. But first, we got the Stadium Series, 2 teams that we both think should be adding, the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Detroit Red Wings. I saw a comment from R.J. Umberger in Nick Kotsanika's story. R.J. Umberger went to Ohio State, still lives in Columbus, played for the Blue Jackets. Basically, it was like it's a pipe dream turned into reality for Columbus. I can't wait to get there. I love these events, Sean. I think this one's going to be absolutely spectacular. Should be the second largest attendance ever in an NHL game.
It's going to be amazing. Columbus is a great city. We don't get to experience it as much as we'd like because they're not regularly in the playoffs. You know, but I've been there 4 or 5 times. Just a fantastic place. And the setting is going to be unbelievable. And Saturday is going to be full of surprises. So tune in.
Absolutely. And this was a lot of fun. Thanks to Sean Corrali. And again, the podcast is brought to you by Skip. Skip to the good part and get groceries, meals, and essentials delivered right to your door on Skip. Enjoy the hockey.